Check, check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go. Oh, there we go. Little glitch. Yeah, let's go. Tried to do the intro twice. It's Ballsy Uncut. Wherever you're consuming this, however you're consuming this, thanks for making me part of your day, whether it's in podcast form or live here on X, Facebook, YouTube. You can also find Ballsy Uncut on Instagram as we have our posts on there. We don't stream regularly there, but we may look at doing that. Show's brought to you by our friends at Ward Tire Craft, 101 Dudney Avenue in Regina for all your tire and braking needs. They got affordable payment plans to keep your vehicle on the road. And you go in today and you say Ballsy sent you, Ballsy Uncut sent you, 10% off. Getting ready for winter. Need those winter tires. Be nice to get a little 10% in your jeans, wouldn't it? Got a great show lined up here. We're going to hear from Chris Walby, former Hall of Fame player with the Blue Bombers and great broadcaster with the CBC. I miss him on there. He called it like it is. We need to have more offensive linemen, defensive linemen in broadcasting, either in the NFL or CFL. It's 100% true. Because that's a part of the game that the average analyst doesn't really get. They're not, it's a brotherhood, a fraternity. Only a select few are allowed in it. All right. The show also brought to you by District Brewing and their Super Squeeze Seltzer, Mango Lime, Passion Fruit Lime in the orange or purple can in Saskatchewan liquor stores and available at their store on 6th Avenue in the heart of Regina. Want to thank all those checking in today, getting set for the Bombers and the Riders, the Banjo Bowl. So we got Chris Walby on the show. We also have Mark McConkey, the Rams head coach, U of R Rams, 1-0 after beating my son's Calgary Dinos, who are in action tonight against the U of A. That's why I'm doing this show early, because I'm the boss and I can. And I want to get ready, get prepped with the family to watch the game today, the Dinos and the Alberta Golden Bears. But it's the Rams and the Huskies here tonight at Mosaic Stadium. Then tomorrow night, it's the Thunder and the Hilltops. So a Saskatoon-Regina battle, a couple of slobber knockers back-to-back. I'll be calling that Thunder Hilltops game. We had Tom Sargent on the show earlier this week, teeing it up. Showed those to a few Thunder players, or they checked it out online, and a couple of coaches, and they are pumped up for the game. Hearing Tom Sargent talk gets them fired up to go against him. So, yeah, I'll be doing that game on Access Now, 7 o'clock kickoff on that TV channel, local cable provider, with Avery LeBlanc and Elliot Wagner on the sidelines. Looking forward to getting back to my roots once again, my second time calling junior football in a long time. We also are going to hear from Morley Scott of the Edmonton Elks. The Elkimos getting set for their game against the Calgary Stampeders. They beat the Stamps in the Labor Day game there, and now the rematch. They're looking for a crowd of around 30,000. Boris Beatty has been added as their kicker, so he gets a chance to redeem himself. He's cost them about 3 games off the top of my head. They also will have McLeod Bethel-Thompson be the starting quarterback once again. I'm going to talk to Morley and ask him about, is there a quarterbacking controversy in Edmonton? And Jake Mayer, we know there's one in Calgary. Jake Mayer's been benched. Coach Dickinson not happy with his play, especially after the last game. Logan Bonner, the former Utah State quarterback who's on the roster, gets his first ever professional start Saturday. Stampeders and the Edmonton Elks. Tonight in the CFL, it's BC up against Montreal. That should be a good one. Are the Lions back after dismantling Ottawa, or can the Montreal Alouettes continue their mastery of not only the East, but the CFL, as they are 10-1 heading into this one? And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, coming off a bye week. Yeah, they don't play on Labor Day. They didn't play on the Labor Day weekend. So Danny Machocha, Jason Moss against Rick Campbell and Neil McAvoy's BC Lions. NFL yesterday, what a great first game. Couple of thoughts coming out of that one. Chiefs win at 27-20 over the Baltimore Ravens. Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid are unstoppable. Like last year would have been the year you could have knocked them off, maybe. I think I don't want to admit it, because as you can see, if you're watching, I'm a Chargers fan. I hate the Chiefs, but you got to tip your helmet to them. They are rolling right now. I know you don't want to overreact in the first game, and they weren't perfect. The NFL The first couple 3 weeks are garbage because these players got to bang off the rust. So there's a lot of sloppiness and things like that. So I don't want to overreact, but the Chiefs are going to be a tough out again. They are poised to make it a three-peat, and no team has ever had a three-peat in the modern era of football since free agency. Yeah, you had the Steelers roll in there for a while, but no team has ever won it 3 years in a row. So there you go. They're well on their way. Worthy looks like a speedy little guy. They haven't had that one guy that could take the top off the defense since Tyreek Hill left. He looks like he's going to be real good. He's 160 pounds soaking wet, a Michael Ball type of guy with talent. And I like to see when he gets smoked one time by a safety, but right now he looks like he was a nice draft pick. What else can we tell you? Well, it was a compelling end to that game with the catch at the end of the game by Likely, who was out of the game with an earlier pass from Lamar Jackson, hurt his shoulder, missed one play, came back in and caught the ball in the back of the end zone. But too bad he was wearing size 11s or 12s. If he was wearing size 10s, that would have been a touchdown, and it looked like the Ravens were going to go for 2, but they got the challenge. Well, not the challenge. The command center there got it right away. Unlike the CFL, now give it to the NFL. They have more money, more camera angles, but the CFL command center probably would have called that a touchdown at the end, probably. So there's that. The other thing I'll say is this. Lamar Jackson is an otherworldly talent. He is a video game. He's on cheat code, Madden on cheat code. He can twist and spin and contort his body and is quick. But right now, he's a running back. Let's just be honest. Lamar Jackson is a running back who can throw the football, but not spectacularly. His average depth of completion in the first half was 1.1 yard. And he continues to show you year after year after year that when it's a big game on the big stage, he can't complete the pass when he needs to. He missed Likely in the end zone. He missed Zay Flowers wide open in the end zone before the pass to Likely. Like before the one that was incomplete to Likely. Now, on the one that looked like it might be complete to Likely, it was his otherworldly athleticism that kept the play alive. I'm not saying he's not a great athlete. I'm not saying he's not a great player. He's been the MVP twice, but the regular season is for show, and the playoffs are for dough. And Patrick Mahomes, you put your dough on him. You don't put it on Lamar Jackson. Till he shows me he can do it, the Baltimore Ravens will go nowhere. And that offensive line is pathetic. And I don't know if they're going to get much better. And he won't last the season. Lamar is leaner this year, so he won't be as durable. And I know he was fired up to beat the team that he can't beat, the team he lost to in the AFC Championship game. So he was taking on would-be tacklers, dropping his shoulder, but that's not going to last for the whole season. So he'll have to have a better strategy going forward. Give me a second. I need to wet my whistle here. So there's that. Also, we've got the NFL game tonight. First time in Brazil. It is the Green Bay Packers taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the Eagles were a team that started like 10-0 and then just faded down the backstretch last year, lost out in the playoffs, fired their D coordinator, fired their O coordinator. Their head coach, Nick Sirianni, barely kept his job. So he will have to have a great year to keep his job. They should win the NFC East. But they're playing an upstart Packers team that started 2-1. Well, here, let me do this. This is to prove, if you missed this show, you can go back in our archives and check it out. We have all the big guests here. Here is Wayne Larrivee, a man who has been in the NFL for 46 years. Okay, 46 years. Called the likes of Brett Favre, called the likes of Aaron Rodgers, called the likes of Michael Jordan in the NBA. He's the Green Bay Packers radio announcer. He was on Ballsy Uncut. Here's what he had to say about his Packers.
The NFL, and yeah, there was a different feel about that team, and there was a positive energy with those young guys, and that kind of carried them through. Last year was supposed to be a great learning experience. I think it was the best learning experience I ever saw. They get off to a good start. They're 2-1. They won 2 of their first 3 games. Jordan Love's leading the league in passing. They hit a 4-game losing streak that looked really bad in some cases. And all of a sudden, they haven't won a game in 42 days. And the young guys didn't realize they were supposed to go into the shitter in a situation like that. And I've seen over my career many teams do that. That didn't happen. They instead, those young guys just said, oh, we got another game this week. Yeah, let's go out and do it. And they kept playing hard, and they got better. And Jordan Love got better when the people around him got better, and the receivers started figuring out where they should be. And all of a sudden, that young team took off. And I thought it was one of Matt LaFleur's, one of the better coaching jobs I've seen in my 46 years in the league, Matt and his staff last year. And when they got to the playoffs, that was a team that was on a roll and playing with.
Yeah, so great for to Wayne Larrivee for joining me. And if you want to check that out, it was last week where we had Wayne on, so you can look up Wayne Larrivee and get his thoughts or hear his thoughts on the NFL and the Packers this year. They're in a great division. I think Green Bay is going to win that division. I think Detroit will probably get a wild card out of that division. It'll be interesting to see what Kerry Joseph and the Chicago Bears do with the first overall pick, Caleb Williams. And Minnesota, J.J. McCarthy's not there because of injury. So they've got Sam Darnold, who I think might be the comeback player of the year with his coach, Kevin O'Connell, who's a great coach, offensive head coach in Minnesota. So, yeah, we've got that game here tonight. Should be a good one. This is the best time of year for football. You got high school firing up, 6-man, 9-man, 12-man all over the province, and we'll highlight that as the season goes on here. Got NFL, got U Sports, got NCAA, got junior football, and, of course, the Canadian Football League. And speaking of the NFL, you want to get your fantasy tips before the first weekend. We got Andy McNamarra, our expert, exclusive to this show. I know other shows have tried to grab him, but that ain't happening anymore. You want to be lazy and just piggyback what we're doing here? That's not going to happen. So go get your own guy, Andy McNamarra, exclusive to us. Great fantasy tips. We'll have him on before the end of the show. And that's the other thing I want to say. Arash Madani put out a tweet, friend of mine from Sportsnet. Talked to him weekly in a previous life, and he's absolutely right about this. Randy Ambrosie was big on global. We're gonna be the global leaders for football. Randy, the NFL has a game in Brazil today. The NFL has a game coming up October 6th in a stadium, soccer stadium in England that was built for the NFL or NFL ready. They have one at Wembley Stadium. They have one in 2025 in Madrid. They've been to Mexico many times. This global thing ain't going to fly. It's not going to fly. I'm sorry. I'd love to see the numbers to see how much interaction we've got from global fans on our social media and if they've been able to monetize that. Because otherwise, and no disrespect to my global friends who are on teams, but you're taking away Canadian jobs. That's basically what you're doing. You're taking away Canadian jobs or even American jobs. You're taking away American jobs, but probably Canadian jobs, Canadian kicking jobs. Actually, yeah, you're taking away Canadian kicking jobs for the most part. It's time to dump it. It's not happening. You're not going to compete against the NFL. You need to expand. And I don't think expansion is in Canada. It's done in Atlantic, Canada. Let's be honest. It's done. I don't know that there would be an appetite in Quebec City. Laval's got a sweet thing going there. Why would they got a lot of people coming to their games for college, and you don't have the overhead you would having a pro team. So unless you want somebody, and hey, rich people, they like to massage their egos by having a pro sports team. It's kind of like having a boat or a cabin, like David Braley used to tell me. That's his boat or cabin, and fair. You got the money. You want to spend it however you want. And if you want to spend it on the CFL, it's great. And I love we have Larry Thompson and Amar Dome and Pallado and Montreal and those type of guys. But I don't see expansion happening in the CFL unless it's in the States. And like I said, Lonnie Gleiberman, the old Ottawa and Shreveport owner, was on here. And he thinks you should go to bigger markets for the TV. And I guess if you can get a huge TV deal, sure. St. Louis looks like they might support something like that. San Antonio. But I'm in favor of the northern states. Fargo, North Dakota, where I know very well. Grand Forks, North Dakota. Brookings, South Dakota, where the Jackrabbits play. You got where South Dakota plays. They've got a dome stadium. Montana, those type of states where They have an appetite to spend money on sports and will never get a professional football team. And their college football teams are big, but not so much that you couldn't have a professional football team there if marketed right. That's the key. But I think that's what you got to do. Now, you don't just automatically do it. We'd have to look at how do we preserve the ratio, because I wouldn't want to dump the ratio. Paying people in Canadian or American dollars. How do you do it? I will say this, in the last expansion go round, Canadian teams were 500 versus the American teams when they dressed all Americans. So keep that in mind. And a lot of our players do come from, FCS schools, those schools on the border, Eastern Washington, Montana State, look at the Dickinsons. So many players like that. So yeah, forget the global thing. It's done. It's finished. All right, let's get to some great U Sports football after a first sponsor break. We're going to hear from Rams head coach, U of R Rams head coach, Mark McConkey. Rams head coach Mark McConkey joining me here. Please, that was like I was in a movie that I didn't know if I should be in it, because like my son is wearing Dinos red, and I told him before the game it's going to be weird for me. A, I don't like the number 0, which is kind of growing on me now, obviously. And B, I don't like red because I hated the Dinos for all those years. Calling games, they ended Rams seasons year after year after year. And of course, I'm a Ram alumni. So I did cheer for the Dinos, but I wasn't overly sad you guys won, just being truthful. And that's always big to get a win on the road to start the season in an 8-game season.
Yeah, it's a big one for sure. I mean, it doesn't really matter who you play week 1, and especially on the road, right? If you can go out there and steal a win on the road early in the year, and again, like our seasons, it's short, right? So it was a big win for us, and hopefully it sets the tone for the rest of the year for us.
So, Mark, you guys do win, and you did it without your starting quarterback by around halftime. Can you tell me the update on Owen Sieben, who left the game with looked very left gingerly on the cart?
Yeah, he did. Again, just got a bit of a whiplash and concussion there. So he's on the mend. He's on the recovery, and right now he's in the protocol right now, and he's really just week to week. So obviously won't be playing Friday versus the Huskies, but maybe next week or the week after we'll kind of see as the doctors clear him. I unfortunately can't clear him. I'm not the doctor here. So, but yeah, we're just kind of taking it week to week right now with him and making sure he's taken care of, and then we'll go from there.
Thankfully, you got Noah Pelchier, who had some time before Owen came on the scene. And so I wouldn't say it was seamless, but at least you got a guy that's been under fire before.
Yeah, I mean, usually when you put your backup quarterback in, it's always going to be a step down. But we knew with Noah coming back this year, which we're obviously super grateful for, and his leadership and obviously the way he plays the position, he went in there and didn't really miss a beat. And he's played in lots of U Sports games, so he has that experience. So there's usually always that drop off, but I felt in our room, there wasn't much of a drop-off at that position, which is super important. I mean, the CFL, all the injuries, and even Can West, there's always a quarterback who gets hurt here and there, and it's just nice to have that backup valve with Noah.
Now, you can't really – I don't know that you can really judge your offense after that game. You had 2 interceptions, 2 fumbles, stopped on a short yardage. But at the same time, like I said, your starting quarterback was out, so it's tough for a guy to come in, even though he has experience in Pelchier I'm talking about, and just hit it. But it looks like you guys got some good receivers, and you got a stable of running backs there to move the ball.
Yeah, we really do. I think it was a pretty good game for us. Again, I think we stalled out and early on and could have got the game out of hand early, but there was flashes of what we can do, and that's kind of our mindset. Whether we won or lost the game, we got to continually improve and get better week in, week out, and that's I think what we're on pace to do. And yeah, it's nice when you got 3, 4, 5 running backs that can all carry the ball, and they're all different, which is exciting. So it's definitely by committee right now at that running back spot.
Was it tough to turn the reins over to Josh Donnelly as the OC, or is it kind of a collaboration between you, Josh, and maybe even like a Dwayne Mason, who's a veteran of on the offensive side of the ball?
Yeah, no, honestly, it's been a great transition. Obviously, Josh did a lot of our pass game last year. He was a big part of the game plan there, and this whole off season was an easy transition, and he's doing a great job. He's doing a better job than I would be doing, trying to do both head coach and OC. So he's great. He's got the full trust of the staff, the players, and again, we always collaborate. Obviously, like Coach Mason. Again, I know you know Dwayne, and he's been around forever. He's one of our more experienced coaches. I mean, I'll call him old on your show. That's fine, but
He called himself old too. So Mason already did that. Yeah,
he is. Yeah, it's always exciting. We brought in Chad Eamon to be our alumni speaker, and Dwayne coached him in '89 with the RMF Lions in the North End, so he gets dated himself for that. But yeah, it's a group effort for sure on offense, and we all kind of chip in with protections, pass game, run game, but ultimately it's Josh's offense now, and he's doing a great job, and excited to kind of keep seeing him grow.
So ego is a big part in this game, and it has to be a big part in this game. Whether you're a coach, whether you're a player, you have to have an ego. You do. You just have to. So you got an ego as a coach. How tough was that to say, okay, I recognize maybe I can't do both or shouldn't do both, or it's time to turn the reins over? It's easy to say that. It's not easy to do, Mr. McConkey.
Yeah, that is 100%. I mean, all coaches have an ego, and I'm a bit of a control freak. So I've been trying to give Josh his space at times. And I told him that. I said, hey, just because I'm not coming in here bugging you every day doesn't mean I'm not in it with you, but I want to let you run the show and you take ownership of it. And he's done exactly that. And I'll jump in. We go through the game plan every week. We go through calls. Yeah. We all work together. But it was a good transition. I think I'm doing a better job as the head coach now this year, where sometimes I get too caught up in wearing my OC hat or wearing the head coach hat. And it's hard to do both at this level. And again, that's why I tip my hat to those pro guys who do both. It's tough to do both. And, but I'm got full support of Josh, and it's been a good year, good training camp so far.
You've always been a classy guy to me. So you take a little bit of that from Frank McChrystal, I think, and you showed some of that this weekend by, I want to talk about that. Like, first of all, did you get through unscathed injury-wise? Anybody else down? Like, as we talk now, we're not going to be revealing any trade secrets because this is going to air just before the game. So truth be told, we're talking on the Thursdays. People watch this on Friday. So is there anybody else? Because it was a lot, there's injuries on both sides of the ball there.
Yeah, we have a few injuries for sure. We got a weird amount of broken hands and thumbs, but those guys they're tough guys. They're playing through it, and obviously the quarterback with Owen going down, that was the big one that everyone's going to keep talking about. But yeah, we got a few, but we've got the mentality of next man up. I think we had a good recruiting year, so we got a lot of depth in every position, and there's a reason we brought guys in to come play and compete, and now some guys are going to get a chance. So we are a little bit banged up, but everyone is. There's no team that doesn't have injured guys, so that's just how it goes. And we're just next man up. And when those guys come back, great, we'll be even stronger.
Okay, so where I was going with this is Sieben gets hurt, you stay behind with from the team, you rent a car, you have a hotel, whatever, or hang out with them at the hospital. It's almost like you got your own family, but you also now have an extended family of 80 or 100 guys. You kind of feel like a surrogate father, and because you're the guider of the whole thing now.
Yeah, no, and that's where I was talking about, like, just being the head coach. And I always joke about with Frank and Bernie. I was like, what does Frank even do? Like, he's watching CNN in his office. And now that I'm in that chair, the amount of stuff head coaches do, it's insane. Like, you do it all. And we had I was dealing with a player last night, went to his house, talked to his parents. Like, it's never ending. And like you said, your phone's always on. But that's what I want to be. And that's what Frank and Bernie did for me. They set the foundation of what the Rams are all about. And we pride ourselves on taking care of our players. I think that's something that we sell in our program, is the support academically and obviously just off the field as well, which is even more important. So we do a lot of that work, and it's never ending, but there's a lot of fulfillment in it.
I learned this from Glenn Sather. If you dress well off the ice or off the playing surface, then you go to the field, you feel good about yourself, or the hockey rink, and you play good. So I told Ethan, I bought you a suit for your grad at UND. Wear the damn thing to the stadium, right? So speaking of threads, I like the white horns. I didn't like how because that's what I wore, but I didn't like how they meshed up with the kind of gold jerseys. But I understand you guys just got a new deal with Under Armour. Are you switching the color of the jerseys now to kind of mesh and kind of blend it all in?
Yeah, we're looking to blend it all in. Obviously, that was a big switch to Under Armour from Nike, and the players love them, and that's all I really care about. And I know lots of the alumni and even myself, like, the white horns are pretty cool. But at the end of the day, to be honest, I don't really care what we wear. We could wear puke green jerseys, and we're still playing football, and that's kind of our mindset as a staff. But the players like the new jerseys, the helmets, the masks, and I think it's a good look. But to be honest, I don't care about that stuff. I just want to play football and coach football.
I could tell because your hat is gold and your shirt is the old school. You got the new and the old, or the more updated one. Okay, so let's talk about this game. Once again, we talk about making the playoffs, something you want to do again. You got to win your home games. If you win your home games, you're pretty well set for the playoffs. And to get a leg up on the U of S Huskies, it's always great. We always use this phrase, but I think it's applicable. The records, everything goes out the window when you play your provincial rival.
Yeah, it's a big game, and we're really are like everyone knows it's a big game. I know we got a lot of out of town guys, so we've been talking about what this game means, and got an alumni video to show them tonight of some past players and talking about their experiences playing the Huskies. I'll leave it at that because we're on air here, and it does mean something. There's a lot of pride on the line, and and I think one of the guys even said this isn't the States. There's no NIL deals. There's no this. Like right now, we're all just playing for pride. Like that's a big game, and they've had our number the last few years, and we had theirs before. So we got to get the tide turning the right way again, and come out with a win on Friday because it is big, and every game's big in Can West, and the standings are going to be tight this year as always, and we're just excited to go compete against a good football team.
It's a good point. Like the NIL deals. I just came from that world as a father, and it is like you in the past. And I'm not saying you guys don't recruit and you don't. I'm not saying there's not competition at U Sports level. But what I'm getting at is like you build your way up the roster, but then all of a sudden it's like college free agency now. They go get 2 6-year guys from a JUCO and they pay him money and he comes and he plays, and now all of a sudden your 3 years didn't really matter, right? That's the one good thing about U Sports. I know you'll go get junior players, which you've done and other teams have done, but generally you're pretty loyal to your guys. The other thing my son pointed out was he finds there's more attention to detail with indie coaching, like more technique coaching. Would you agree with that at the U of R too? Because he's finding that in Calgary.
Yeah, definitely. It's all about player development, and that's a big thing. And obviously our off season is so much longer than it is in the States there, and they got more rules down there. They can practice more, and they just play more football down there, right? So their players coming out of high school are maybe a little bit more polished than the Canadian average football player, and it's our job to teach them the skill and get them up to it. So we do a lot of schemes in season, but there's always that individual time, and we do a ton of that in the off season and in training camp, and because you're trying to catch those guys up skill wise to be at their best and really develop. And yeah, it's definitely something that we put a lot of effort into.
Is there a rule with practicing at night? Because like another question, okay, I'm talking as a father here. He practiced in the morning before school, and then they do their school, and then they come back and they do film work and everything like that. Is there a rule against that? Because every team seems to go evening practice.
Yeah, I think a lot of that just comes down to just the coaches, right? And obviously, school. I'm not saying school doesn't come first in the States, but maybe if you're in the 5 schools, it doesn't matter as much. But
I think when the States, if I can stop you there, I agree a little bit with regards to that, but also. What they'll do is they'll get the academic advisor, and then he will maneuver their classes around what the coach wants to do. But I don't know that would be the same thing here at U Sports level, right?
Yeah, I don't have quite that pull yet. We got to win a few Vaniers, and maybe they'll start shifting classes around for the football players. But yeah, no, ultimately it comes down to, I think, the coaches too. Like we got 3 full-time coaches here. The rest of our coaches are crazy, and they give up their time at night to come coach. And so they work during the day, their normal jobs, and they come here and coach at night. So just the love of the game there. And that's a big part of why most teams, I would say, go at night, because we don't have the 10 full-time coaches like some of the American schools do.
And talk about that. Well, I mean, we've talked about this before in other forums, but just talk about you get paid. Is there 1 or 2 other coaches that get paid on your staff?
Yeah, Bruce Anderson's full-time as well, and Sheldon Gray's like half-time. He's a half-time teacher, half-time D coordinator, and he's got that worked out with the Rams and the school board there. And then other than that, everyone else is.
So talk about that. So talk about that, Mark, and the love of the game, and how it really is. You are committing your life to helping the next generation, and you're not getting anything for it. Might get a jersey and a shirt and a hat or something like that, but that's about it.
Yeah, I think that's what I said. Like our coaches, I think we've got a great staff. I mean, I could go down the list, but just a guy like Dwayne Mason's really just like devoted his life to coaching football and giving back. And we're big on that in our program. You know that, right? We do a lot of community work with kids, and all of our guys, we mandate them to do volunteer work, coaching flag football, selects, whatever it might be, just to give back and get into coaching. And it's all about the community and being positive role models. And I think that starts with myself and our coaching staff. Like we got to be positive role models for these guys. And yeah, it's pretty crazy what they do and the hours they put in, and even just our whole staff. Like you go to the trainers, Bob Thomas, the equipment staff, like they put in a lot of time and don't get very much money for it. And it's all about just the players and serving them and and obviously you got to enjoy football. You wouldn't be doing it if you don't love football. And I think all of our coaches, top to bottom, just genuinely love football and the process and the life lessons you learn. And that's why we do it.
You're all alpha dogs in football, okay? You all want to beat each other and all that type of stuff. You're still a player, I can tell. You still want to be that receiver. You want to get in guys' faces, and I love that. But in terms of competition, are you on a friendly basis with the other coaches in the league, like Adobe, like Flory who comes into town, like Neil and stuff? Like in terms of, you know what I mean? Football's a small world, right? You're competing, but it's a small world. Are you guys kind of on the same page when it comes to things?
Yeah, I'd say most of us are. I mean, you're obviously going to be closer with some guys other than more than others. And obviously, like Brian Dobie's a great mentor of mine. He's a guy I leaned on a lot, and I can talk to him about, especially being a young head coach in Can West compared to a lot of the other guys. And so you always have that. And there's some coaches maybe you don't get along with, but you still have that mutual respect for what they do and what they do with their program. And I'll just leave it at that. But I'm usually pretty friendly. I'm the friendly one out there. Not as friendly as Dobie, but like he was great. Obviously, Wayne Harris was great with me. And again, they both know my dad from when he coached junior. So I had that relationship built in, and those guys are great. And honestly, like Wayne was an open book. When I first took over head coach, I actually flew to Calgary and sat down with him for an afternoon and just talked about how'd you win a Vanier in 2019? Tell me about it. And because you guys have had strong teams before that, you never won. And he just talked about like culture and leadership and getting the right people on staff. And Wayne was great. And I got a lot of respect for Wayne. And I know he just joined the UBC staff, so that was interesting. So I'm looking forward to seeing him next weekend when he comes out here for that game.
Times they are changed. Okay, lastly, what do you got to do to beat Scott Flory and the Huskies, who have been a perennial powerhouse the last few years?
Yeah, our message this week is just kind of focus on us. That's what we did last week. We're going in kind of blind in Calgary, new head coach, new coordinators, and we didn't really know what to expect. And we just focused on us. Like, what do we do well? What's our game plan? Like, what are our checks? What are our audibles? What's all those things? And I think we did a great job of that. So it's no different this week. And it doesn't really matter who you play. We just got to focus on us. And what's the Rams football we want people to see? What's our expectations of ourselves? What's our standards? And that's what we've been preaching all week.
Mark, thanks for your time, man. Best of luck going 2-0 against the Huskies. It's a big game. You can get a little bit of breathing. That's the other thing. You can get some breathing room against these guys. There's got to be it's early in the season, but there's got to be a little sense of urgency too.
There always is when you play 8 games and there's no 12-team playoff. You gotta get in right now, and every game's big. And it's just another big Can West game, and we're looking forward to it.
So we just saw the Chiefs and the Ravens on Thursday Night Football. Who do you got playing in the Super Bowl, and who's winning the Super Bowl?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I'm not we do a coach's fantasy football every year, and I come dead last every year. I'm not I just focus on Rams football, but tonight I'll pick the Chiefs just because I know Coach Anderson's a big Ravens fan, so I know that will make him mad. And Super Bowl, I mean, it's hard not to pick the Chiefs, and I'm going to go with a sleeper pick, my Atlanta Falcons.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. Yeah, the Falcons, they'll be good this year. I think they will be good this year.
It's not a good division, so if they can get in the playoffs, you never know.
I love it. Thanks for your time, man. That's Mark McConkey. We got a hold of him yesterday before the game tonight, Rams and the Huskies. Got nothing to do. Beautiful night in Regina. Go watch some provincial university football. I'll be watching that, but I'll also be watching the Packers game, and I'll also mainly be watching the Dinos and the Golden Bears as my son wearing red, which isn't my favorite color. I'm warming up to it, and 0, which wasn't my favorite number. Is that even a number? So he's wearing both. So I gotta like it. I said to Mark, hey, Riders, more injuries, more 6-game stuff. Zach Fry, 6-game. Peter Godber, 6-game. So your first 2 centers are gone. Godber and then Fry. Dante Myers, their great up-and-coming receiver. He's out too on the 6-game arm in a sling this week at practice. Stanley Bryant won't play for the Bombers, so I guess that's some good news. I will say, and Adam Bigkill's out with that knee injury. I will say this, though, good luck to Noah Zur. Sent him a message personally. Good kid from the U of S Huskies, Langenburg, Yorkton area. Dad went to the U of S. Was at the U of S. Was with the BC Lions, then went to Hamilton, now with the Riders, makes his first professional start tomorrow in the Banjo Bowl, where it's going to be very, very loud. We're going to get to talk about the Banjo Bowl with the Hall of Fame player, Chris Walby of the Bombers, and great broadcaster on the CBC. Now, It's back to school. Hope all the kids are having a good time this week. And of course, kids back in university too. I don't know if this is, I don't want to be spreading rumors. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I heard like in one of the schools, I'll confirm this, that it's in this school before I give the school name. And maybe there's more than one school. Well, first of all, we had the thing at Evan Hardy where a grade 9 student got lit on fire by another student. Lit on fire, like gasoline and fire. What is going on? Like I was picked on in high school. Actually, not so much in high school. I was picked on in elementary school, shoved in lockers and stuff. A little bit in high school. Then played football, and that helped me overcome the bullying, and away we went. Now, that's crazy. I don't even have any words for that. I guess they shut the school down today, and they had grief counseling and all that type of stuff, which they should. That's unbelievable. Crazy. Speaking of crazy, this is where I don't know I've heard it's the school. I don't know if it's true. I got to dig a little more before I have somebody say it's not at our school. But I've been told that at least one school in a town just outside of Regina, that's all I'll say, they have a litter box for the kids. I'm not talking for the kids' cats, because they identify as a cat. What is going on? Like, what is going on? What kind of parents, get your shit together? Your kid's not a cat. I was in the mall. I'm probably going to offend some people. I don't care. I'm in the mall and I'm watching these kids. There was 2 kids. They're teenagers. I think 11, 12. They're walking with what I can only assume are their parents. Like 2 dads with 2 kids. And they're walking around with ears and tails. I think they call them furries. And they're walking around in the mall. I guess have at her, like whatever. It doesn't affect me. It didn't ruin my day. But I know you love your kids, but you got to actually guide them too. Like, kid, you're going to cut down your prospects in life if you're going to get the big face tattoo. Sorry, you are. You're going to, and hey, I like tattoos, but let's be honest. In a lot of companies, you can have them, but they want you to cover them. Hey, kid, you probably shouldn't wear the furry stuff around in public. You want to do it behind closed doors. Like it's, sorry, I probably pissed people off, but what furry thing is one thing, I guess, but you're really gonna let your kid think he's a cat or she's a cat, or really? They're not a cat. They're not a cat. I don't pay for cats to drive cars. I don't pay for cats to go to university. I'm not paying for a cat's wedding. You're not a cat. There shouldn't be a litter box at school. Shame on the parents and shame on the anything goes. Like, we're going to ban cell phones in classrooms, which I totally am in agreement with. But we're not going to ban litter boxes. You wonder why Russia and China are taking over the world, because we're worried about if a boy or a girl is a cat. You got to be freaking kidding me. CFL legend Chris Walby joining me here for the second time on the show. Chris, how's summer gone? Like, is everything going good at the cabin or what?
It's absolutely wonderful. I'm telling you what, I've enjoyed the weather. I'll take this any day, man. Especially, you know what? Like, I was talking to a guy last week, and I said my 2 favorite games are the Labor Day and the Banjo Bowl. I love the Prairie rivalry. I love the atmosphere. It was great to watch that game in Saskatchewan last at Mosaic. What a great crowd. What a great game. I mean, to come down to the last, kick by Brett, to miss a 60-yarder. I mean, he needed to get some of them Sergio Castillo jeans.
Yeah.
Castillo is like, 9 of 11 over 50. That guy's a machine right now.
Let's be honest, Chris. Back when you played, if a kicker strolled out and made a 45-yarder, you bought him beer all night long because you thought, well, that's a great, oh, man, that's a historic kick. Now, if the dudes aren't consistent outside of 50 and maybe even 55, like the kicking game is gotten so much better.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I want to correct you. Even if you kicked a 45-yarder, I wouldn't buy a kicker a beer. Just want to let you know that, man. Kickers, no. That's your job. You come out like 3 or 4 times a game, maybe. So you are expected to do that. I actually felt bad for Brett that game. He missed 4. And that's the first time I shed a tear for a kicker because I'm just not the only guy I've ever loved is Trevor Kennard. Well, I like Troy too because I did a show with Troy, but yeah. No beer for the kickers, man. I'm sorry, brother. I cut it off, baby, right there.
Okay, good. I appreciate your steadfastness in that aspect of your opinion. Okay, so let's talk about that. The Rough Riders are going through what Edmonton has gone through. Edmonton couldn't get off the schneid. Then they got off the schneid and they got on a roll. I feel the same thing about the Riders. Like the Riders aren't playing horrible football, but they're getting horrible results. You've been in locker rooms where things aren't going right. How do you right the ship? Or is it just you get a bounce and it works and then it gets going?
Yeah, I think it's just getting a win, Ballsy. I think that's all it is right now. I mean, some of the games they've lost, the tie game against Ottawa when they get that stupid call at the end for roughing the passer and then they allow them to kick a tying field goal. They should have won that game. They break down. Look at this. Mario Alford fumbles that ball last week. Second week in a row for the Bombers special teams to score a touchdown. That was the turning point for me in that game. I thought Trevor Harris had a whale of a game. I mean, when you compare the stats between Zach and him, and of course, Zach took that hit from Miles Brown. I don't think it was a dirty hit. I listened to Corey Mace talk about him, and he's a guy that's only got 2 or 3 penalties all his career. So, unfortunately, they're both roughing the passer. But, yeah, I think that all it takes is a win to get on that roll and just get that monkey off your back, for lack of a better term.
Hey, I got respect for Wade Miller in the fact that he sticks up for his team, and Mike O'Shea did the same thing last year. Maybe the Riders take a different approach, but I find it funny. Wade is mad at Miles Brown, but nobody said much when Adam Bighill folded up Shea Patterson like a cheap tent earlier in the year.
Yes. What's good for the goose sometimes ain't good for the gander. I agree with you. I mean, it's just one of them stupid things, but listen, I'm a fan of football, and I'm a fan of contact. I'm a fan of the physicality of the game. I'm not a fan when we start turning the game into, flag football. Listen, you can't hit the quarterback below knees. I'm loving that. You can't hit him in the head. I love that. But come on, man. You're a 6'2", 300 defensive lineman, and you're coming, and you're supposed to stop on a dime. Your momentum's carrying you through. I understand it. And a lot of times you see a quarterback. I'm not dogging quarterbacks, but quarterbacks a lot of times will go into that fetal position. They'll bend down. So, the contact area becomes smaller.
Yes.
It doesn't work. So, I think there's some – I'm all about safety. I'm all about wearing these, these reverse planter helmets, whatever they call. They look like planters.
Yeah.
The rubber things.
Yeah.
But, let the game be the game, too. Don't let something like that decide. Listen, I don't want nobody to get concussion. I understand that, Zach's had a history of concussions, and he's a heck of a player. And he's the straw that stirs the drink on this Bomber offense. So.
And it's interesting. 2 things. Let's talk about, because last time you were on, you talked in 81 how they made you ram your head into telephone poles.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it's different. I think those Guardian caps are good for linemen because you're banging every play. Yeah. I think otherwise they're a placebo because it's high impact, like on the fly. I don't think they really help receivers or any of those guys. I think if it's just sudden impact contact, like linemen, I think it's good. But otherwise, I don't think they're going to do much, to be quite honest with you.
Well, that's what I love about this game. They're worried about the quarterback getting hit in the head, but the linemen, defense and offense, and even linebackers to some extent, you're banging heads all the time. I told you the story when I hit that 2-A Alipati at Hamilton.
Yeah.
And I lined up in the wrong huddle because I was concussed. Back then they just gave you smelling salts, get back out. But we've got, the linemen are the ones that are banging heads every play, and you're taught to hit. there's no such thing as, you want to get your hands on the chest. Well, if they're down knee crotch to the ground, how are you supposed to get under there? You know what I mean? You got to get the helmet up. You got to get under their face mask. You got to drive them. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of going on a rant in that because of the fact that I understand what these guys go through.
Well, okay. On that note, Walby, talk to me about this. You're a legendary offensive lineman. Okay, you got a bust in the Canadian Football Hall of Fame.
How ran out of clay for that one too.
How impressed are you, big man? When, like, I think the Riders are playing with fire. Don't dress me an extra special teams guy. You know your offensive line is hurt. Find me 2 extra offensive linemen, because I don't want my 35-year-old stud defensive tackle playing offensive line. But let's give it to Micah Johnson. What a stud!
I was blown away by that. And what's the funny thing? I didn't even really notice that in the game, but when I watched it back, I said, that's an athlete. Any of that can come over and play a half at that guard position.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's tough because you got to know the communication. You got to know the calls. Who do you block? Who you don't block? I thought, I'm a big Micah Johnson fan. I love the fact that he's leading the team in sacks. Still got 20 tackles from that defensive tackle spot.
Mm-hmm.
He's, the only guy that I ever see. I mean, we had a guy named Stan Mikolas, and he would do the same thing. He played O-line. And I think the only reason he played O-line was to get invited to our O-line party because we had free beer. That's the only reason I think he played O-line. I mean, I think he was spiking some of our O-line drinks just so he could get into the line.
Can you speak to me a little bit more about the Rider O-line? And we got a young kid here, Saskatchewan boy, played for the Regina Thunder, Logan Ferland. He's played tackle. He's played both tackles. He's played guard, and he had to come in as the 3rd center in that game. Just talk about how talented that big hoggy has to be to do all of that.
Yeah, first off, you got to have a head on your shoulders. Not only are you going a tackle where you're in a space and guard, you're maybe a little guarded from the center and a tackle. But when you go to the center now, you got to make all the calls. And you know what? To go into the hostile bomber, Princess Auto Stadium, sold out for weeks. It's going to be so loud. And the communication from him to recognize the defensive fronts is so crucial. I watched an interview with Logan Ferland yesterday, I think it was.
Yeah.
Very intelligent young man, well-spoken. He makes the old lineman proud, not like us when we stumble on our words. So, I mean, I like the guy. I really think, but I think it's very special when you get a guy that can play all 3 positions, and a big man at that too. And then long snapping, that's another thing he's got to get. He's got to do that. What is it? They're 12th offensive linemen.
That's crazy. They've had 6 right tackles now.
Yeah, I heard.
I feel good. Hey, let me ask you this. Take me into Noah Zer's cleats for a second. Noah Zer from Langenburg in the Yorkton area, U of S Husky, and he gets his first ever professional start for the team he grew up watching, the Rough Riders. Do you remember your first professional start, and what kind of advice would you give to big Noah Zer?
My first game ever playing against offensive linemen, when I was a defensive lineman, they switched me over. This is no word of a lie. The first game I played against was Saskatchewan.
Wow.
And I played against, what's his name? The Big Bird. Oh, my God. Big Canadian defensive lineman.
Not Wozniacki, was it?
I so was. Lyle Wozniacki. So anyway, I'm lining against, but of course, being an offensive lineman, I'm aggressive. I'm jumping him. And all of a sudden, he goes around my right side. I turn the helmet, and there's Dieter Brock, and he is just getting crunched. I'm like, oh, that's not going to be good. So they sit him. They put in Mark Jackson, the backup quarterback. No word of a lie. I'm playing the very next series against Wozniacki again. I said, the little son of a bitch always likes to go to the right. So I jumped to the right. He goes to the left. It was almost a replay. I turn around, Mark Jackson. Boom. I go to the bench, and Ray Yock's the head coach, and he says, Walby. I go, what? He says, man, you got to tighten up. We're running out of quarterbacks. I mean, it was crazy. And I think that's my first game ever as no lineman as a guard. I'm on that bus ride home thinking, well, that was a nice career. They stuck with me, thank God, and helped me get better. But I'll tell you, that was my first experience. So to your question, I hope Noah Zer, is that his name, Zer?
Zer, yeah.
Well, Zer, I hope he took a lot of those, diuretics last night because, I'm sure right now your gut's going a million miles an hour. The adrenaline's going. But he's a big kid. I see he's 6'7", 330 pounds. That's a big guard. So, I mean, he's got the big hands, the big, the length.
Yeah.
I hope he plays well, man. I know I think it's his first start, right?
Yeah, first ever start. Yeah, absolutely. So
What about the other guy, Nick Jones? I think is he played before?
yeah, he started at right tackle before. It went to Yoshi. It's been a revolving door out there. They had Jacob Brammer. They had Nick Jones. They had Trevon Tate they picked up from Calgary. It's been a revolving door. Hey, let's talk a little bit about the team that you love, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And what's interesting about this team is Zach Collaros has not been very good this year. He was good in the first half of the Labor Day game before he got hurt. He hasn't been very good. And Brady Oliveira can't find the end zone, and this Winnipeg team is on a roll. That's remarkable.
You know what? And I got to give kudos to Saskatchewan's defense. They've held them to under 50 yards in both games. I mean, that's crazy. The guy has got like number one in their league for rushing, got a great average. Every time he runs for 100, they win the football game, and Saskatchewan's done a great job. And the other thing that was really surprising to me is Brady has really broken out as a receiver out of the back. He is the go-to, a release valve for, if any kind of pressure comes to Zach. And he's got 38 catches already. And yet they limited him. In the game before, he had 9 the first game against Saskatchewan. And only 1 last week, which is really surprising. I mean, but they ran the ball. But again, when you get a guy like Chris Strebler in there, you don't know who to take, right? Bombers, to me, were very, very fortunate to come out of that with a win. I really think that. I mean, that's what I love about the game. You think it's over, I'm just about to shut the TV off. Pass interference, hold it. Don't turn your TVs off. It's still going. And then, of course, I don't know about the marking on the football and all that kind of garbage. But, I mean, obviously trying a 60-yarder into the win was tough. But I just think the Bombers they've got so much bloody talent. Are they going to miss some people? Absolutely. Stanley Bryant not playing again. Arguably the best that ever played. And then you got a guy like Adam Bighill on the other side, the captain of that defense. I know they moved Tony Jones, and don't look at the depth chart. Depth charts are a bunch of garbage. Tony Jones will be in the middle. I don't think they're going to play Shane Gauthier in the middle. But anyway, that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
That when you lose your quarterback in the defense, that's such a huge thing. And then when you lose your inspirational leader, and he doesn't talk much, in Stanley, he just brings a presence to the locker, to the huddle. Excuse me. So now they're going to put put Kendall Randolph at the left tackle, and we'll see what happens against Saskatchewan. How they come back. Saskatchewan #1 against Sacs. I mean, they got a good defense.
Yeah. So 2 more questions for you, big man.
Yeah, man, do it.
Okay. So listen, I'm not going to ask you the loudest fans. Winnipeg Stadium, the way it's constructed, keeps all the sound in. The Riders Stadium is it's more like a V, so the sound gets out. I think they're the 2 best fan bases in the league. There's no doubt about that. But if you're the Riders coming in here, and I know they pump crowd noise in, like when they're practicing, the music and stuff, that does not do justice to what they're going to get. Just what's it like to be in maybe back in the day when BC Place was loud as hell? What's it like to go into a stadium like that and not be able to hear anything?
Crazy. And BC, it's funny you mentioned BC Place because we had to hold hands just to try to get the snap count because, I would be going, and think about this now. I'm going against James Quick Parker, one of the best that ever played. I'm going off his movement when he's supposed to go off my movement. So that's how crazy it is. The biggest thing is, how do you audible? It has to be, you can do hand signals to the receivers and say, okay, we're doing this. But the O-line have to hear do you go colors? Do you go first sound? There's so many different ways you got to attack it. I think it's imperative for Saskatchewan to get out of the gate early. But it's also, if that crowd is crazy, because I don't know if Saskatchewan does it, but I know every time the Bombers get a first down, it's another, and the whole crowd goes crazy. First down. Yeah. So, but to answer your question as a roundabout way here, no, it's so hard to play in that noise, and that's usually good for 1 or 2 procedure calls.
Yeah.
And mistakes. And now you got an offensive line that hasn't played together. Whoo, baby. It's a recipe for, I hate to say it, disaster.
Okay, so having said that, man, I'll get your prediction at the end. There was a Chris Walby moment after the Labor Day game. Maybe you'll correct me if I'm wrong. Everybody was all over Lucky Whitehead because he wanted to buy a beer for the fan that was throwing the haymaker at the Rider fan. And to me, that's what Chris Walby would do. I don't know why everybody's getting mad. And it's the world it's the pussified world we live in now. Everybody's so worried about, oh, he said that, like, I don't know. It's the Labor Day Classic, man. We don't like each other.
Well, again, I wouldn't buy him a beer because I like the beer for myself. So I don't think I'd buy him a beer. I don't know. I know fans. We're in a different society now. Hey, Ballsy, we're in a different society.
Yeah.
People are so sensitive now.
Yeah.
Now, do I agree with fighting against stance? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't condone that. Do I love the atmosphere and just the fan base and the way they feel about their game and they're so proud about their team? Yeah, I do. Yeah. But yeah, it's just crazy because you never know if somebody goes down the stand, somebody hurts themselves seriously. So yeah, maybe that was taken out of context. I think you know what? It's like when we used to have the locker room. We wouldn't want the media coming in right after the game because we say things and we're still jacked up emotionally.
Right.
And it's not fair, right? So we'll say something.
I'm glad you brought that up because you were in media for a long time, and I do miss you, big fella. Everybody was jumping all over Nathan Rourke because he did an interview with Farhan Lalji at halftime and he ran off, okay? And he's since apologized and whatever. But listen, dude, I've been on the sidelines as a sideline reporter for years, and I used to have to do that. Paul Waldo ran right past me, and we're best buddies, and he came back the next day and apologized. And I said, no apologies, man. Those are stupid as it is. Like, aren't those dumb? Like, those are dumb. That's a waste of time.
It's a waste of time. But to me, it's like, I mean, it just – you try to get back into the game, whether you're up or you're down, and you're trying to get your mindset ready to start the second half. It's just tough. And I mean, I understand the league wants to play, the public to see this guy. They want to hear what he's thinking. Like he's going to tell you, you know what? We're going to, you know what? Farhan, we're coming out first play. We're going to run the ball to the right side. I just want to let you know, fans. That's what's going. You know what? Leave the poor bugger alone. Let him play his game. Get him after. Let him get a shower. And then pull him into the room like they do. And let them sit down where they can relax a little bit and don't have a million microphones shoved in their face and just ask them questions about it. Because to me, I've done it myself where I've sworn at guys and I say, and I'll be honest, I've yelled at media coming into my locker room when I played for the Bombers. It wasn't my locker room, except the O-line did run the locker room. And I would say, get the F out, man. Give us some freaking time. Yeah. We didn't even get our beer yet. And so back then, they'd reel a cart of beer in. So you got to let me have a beer first before you want to talk to me.
That's great. Well, I didn't give you a beer, but next time we do, we will have a beer together. I'll pay for it. Before we let you go, though, give me, and it won't be just one beer, probably. Hey, I have to get a sponsor on board. Hey, Walby, who do you got in this game? Here's a better way to put it. Yeah. If the Riders are to do what the Bombers did to the Riders and win there with something they don't often do, what do the Riders have to do?
I think they just got to get on the board early and take the crowd out of it. That's the biggest thing right now. I mean, it's a crazy crowd. I like Trevor Harris. I thought he played exceptionally well. Like I said, he threw the ball the second half especially. He was crazy. They've got some receivers. They got a guy. I don't know what they ran with Hickson. I've been a fan of Hickson. Yeah. I don't know what's going on with AJ. I think they spent a lot of money on AJ and maybe just for marketing. I don't know.
Yeah. I know his hips are shot. So yeah, he won't be.
They spent a lot of money on him, but I like Frankie. I mean, I know they keep signing new guys, but listen. I don't want to come across as a homer, but I just think that Bombers are gonna. I think it's gonna be like 34. I'll give again 34-18 Bombers.
Okay, yeah, and I'd say that's probably pretty well right. And by the way, Harris said something. I think just to tie into what you said here. Harris this week said, you know what? It's so tough for defensive guys now. I think quarterbacks should have to slide head first because there was a play last week. I forget the game where the quarterback slid late and then he kind of got folded up from behind. But you can't blame the defensive guy. He's already in midair. So Trevor even acknowledges, hey, quarterbacks are going to get hit sometimes.
Well, I agree with that, and I love the fact that Trevor says that because I'll be honest with you, I remember that play. The guy in his helmet kind of rolled over it and stuff like that. Yeah, but yeah. I mean, it's a contact game. It's a physical game. It's a momentum game, and you got guys that are incredibly great athletes now. I mean, these guys, they train 12 months a year. They can run, they can jump, and they can hurt you. it's just that's the nature of the beast with this game.
Yeah.
And so, there's going to be contact. Quarterbacks deserve to get hit. They make all the money. They get all the good-looking wives. So you know what? I'm like, bang the bastards up.
Hey, do you think there's a bigger target on Nathan Rourke because he makes $800,000 starting next year or whatever it is?
I think the major issue is how are they going to handle him and Vernon. That's my issue. I mean, I think Vernon was having an MOP type year.
Yeah.
But I mean, Nathan Rourke, what he did as a rookie, when was he, 2022?
Yeah.
I think that he played good last week. And that's, I guess, now old Rick Campbell, he's got himself a dilemma how he's going to handle that stuff. I mean, they're already talking. You see the rumor mills are, well, Calgary's going to trade for him next year because now you got, the mayor who's not the mayor anymore.
Yeah.
He's now the Reef.
Yeah. Yeah.
He didn't get it. He looked terrible last week. Ooh,
hey, Dickie's got to be on the hot seat there too.
Oh, I think he's got a fire. I think he's got a butane torch right up his rear end right now. And I mean, I don't know what's going to happen with him. Yeah. I like Dave. I party with Dave. I played against Dave. I think he's a hell of a quarterback, hell of an offensive mind. But for some reason, Calgary, which surprises me because they're usually at the top of the heap, they are really struggling and they're just sinking fast. So I mean,
yeah. Like two best teams in the West are the jersey over your shoulder and the Edmonton Elks, the Elkamos. They're coming on, the Elkamos.
Put it back to the Eskimos. I like that name better.
Hey, man, on that note, we'll end it. Thanks for your time, man. Enjoy the game, your first one of the season, going to watch live.
I'm going to go watch live with my one son and my wife. We're going to have a good time, have a couple of beers with Paul Bennett, Rick Howells, Trevor Kennard. These are the old cats I haven't seen for a long time, so it's going to be a good time. Ballsy, it was a pleasure again to do it with you. So you have a great one. Watch the game. Bring a lot of tissue paper so you can wipe them tears away. And every time it's touchdown Bombers.
Hey, big man. I don't cheer for anybody now, so I'll just watch. I just gotta watch.
I see you. I can tell right now that I saw the reflection off the helmet there. You're wearing your green Speedos.
Hey, wait a minute. You can't say that. I've got right here. I've got a Bombers hat.
Oh, that's nice, man. Who'd you steal that off of?
I bought it. I bought it. I paid money for that hat. Look at this one. You see this, baby?
What is that?
The Edmonton Elks punter.
Oh, is that Hank Kalisic?
Maybe. Does that look like Hank Kalisic? Does that look like
a cryogenic thing just to bring him back? Look at him.
Look at that.
I hope he's alive. I shouldn't make a joke.
He doesn't look quite as good as you, but it's close.
Yeah, he's got the nice war paint on. I like that, man. Elks. I still say go back to Eskimos.
I don't disagree. Hey, man, take care, bud. I appreciate it.
Take care. Thank you, buddy. Always a pleasure. Have a great time.
Wow, we're going to Edmonton. Morley Scott. Times they are a changing. I had Stauffer on talking Oilers hockey. Let's start there because you used to be the color commentator of the Edmonton Oilers. And I think you did it in the time when, well, there never really was a time till now. It was like Doug Waite, Bill Guerin, price themselves out. The investors group can't afford people. And now all of a sudden, it's the place to be. Draisaitl on a bit of a cheaper deal. That would signal McDavid stays. Probably Bouchard. They did a great job signing Skinner. It's the place to be right now.
Everybody wants to be here, I think, because there's a chance to win a Stanley Cup. And, everybody's good. Everybody's getting rich. It doesn't matter where you play or what you sign. Everybody's getting rich. But not everybody's getting a Stanley Cup. And I think people realize that you got a chance to do that in Edmonton. And that's why it's become a destination. We were thinking, Ballsy, going back, way back. I mean, to Gretzky and Messier and Coffey and Fuhr and all, and then up through to all the really good players that have played for this team. The upper echelon players, none of them ever finished their career here. None of them have.
Yeah.
They've all gone somewhere else. And now it looks like that's obviously changed because Draisaitl may go and play somewhere when he's 36 and 37, the contract's up, but for the majority of his career, he's an Edmonton Oiler. Connor McDavid's probably going to sign a very similar 8-year deal next offseason. He's going to finish his career as an Edmonton Oiler. So at times they are changing indeed. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins has signed long-term. He's probably going to finish his career. It's something that had never happened in Edmonton previously, and now it's happened because they can win. It's a level playing field as far as the salary cap goes, and they can pay what other teams can pay. And now you come here, you got a chance to win a Stanley Cup, which is what everybody wants, right?
Yeah, and they've got an owner that can actually that actually can pay the money to do it. Like you're right with the salary cap, but they've got a guy now, and
you got to be willing to spend to the cap, right? The cap's not just decoration, right? You got to be able to spend to it.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, and times they are changing for you too. From 630 Ched to is it 880 Ched?
Yep.
And so that you'll have to get used to that.
Yeah, it is. We're going to call it 630, 880 Ched for a while because we'll probably start the sentence and go, oh, that's not right. So, we're making the move. October 9th will be the first full day when everything shifts over. We're simulcasting now, but everything will migrate over on October the 9th. It's a move that's above my pay grade or my understanding as far as the stuff with the transmitter goes. But they tell us it'll be a better presence in the city, and it'll save some money, and that's the two main things you want, right? So, making the move to 880 Ched. Little history lesson, way back in the 50s when Ched signed on, it was 1080 Ched. And then in 1963, they moved to 630 on the dial, and in 2024, they're going to move to 880 on the dials.
So, before we get to the football team, the stadium you're sitting in looks like it's going to get a facelift, and that from what I can see online, it looks like it'll be a decent little shine up.
Yeah, let's pump the brakes a little bit on anything that's coming quickly. I mean, there's a plan in place. And the city council and the city of Edmonton has said, yeah, we agree, this needs to be done, this needs to be done, this needs to be done. And then, Ballsy, there's that very important question.
Who's
going to pay for it?
Yeah.
Right, and so the city has basically said the plan's in place, the everything has been approved. Now it needs major funding, and whether that comes from new owner Larry Thompson, whether that comes from the province, property taxes are going up in Edmonton. I don't think Edmonton citizens need to pay for it. The province gave just a whole ton of money to Calgary to build an arena, so maybe it's our turn.
Yeah,
maybe we'll have to wait. Maybe we'll have to wait for an election year for that to happen, though.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I'm going to ask you this question. You're the voice of the team, so I can't ask. I'll ask it this way: why is Larry Thompson the right owner for this team? From what you can tell early on.
When we started this process of selling the team, and they announced last fall that they were going to look into the ownership situation and what was the best way to go, if it was to keep going as a community-owned team, or if it was to go private, or if it was to do a mix mash of the two. Everyone kind of said, okay, it's going to go private. That was kind of the groundwork was laid at that point. So when you're thinking about who needs to own the Edmonton Elks, well, you need a guy, first off, who's got the money. You need a guy who loves the city and knows the city. You need a guy who knows and loves the football team, knows and loves the league. To me, Larry Thompson checks all those boxes, and that is why. I mean, I think I think he said his first date or something was at Clark Stadium watching a game with his wife. We'd heard he was a longtime season ticket holder, and then we had him on our show. We did the news conference live. He sits down to tell us not only is he a season ticket holder, it's like row one behind the bench. So he loves the team. He loves the league. That's what he watches games on weekends wherever they're from, and he's just the right guy at the right time. He checks all the boxes, and he hasn't been since that news conference. We've seen him on the sidelines a couple of times, but we really haven't seen or heard much from him. We've heard a few things going on in the background. In fact, last night he had a little town hall session with some season seat holders, and some of those season seat holders talked on social media about what he said, and he talked about putting in a bid for the 2026 Grey Cup, which I'm sure getting a Grey Cup in a certain amount of years was probably part of the sale deal with the CFL. And he talked about, and it's funny, I it didn't bother me as much as it's bothered the longtime fans. But in 2021, when the name changed, the uniforms changed a bit too. They put white numbers on the back, and a lot of people didn't like that. They want their gold numbers back, and apparently he said last night in the town hall the gold numbers are coming back next year. So just the little things, right? That's important to fans, and they're changing it because it's important to fans, and fans are going to feel happy about it. So it's the little things that he's doing. I think the cheer team was down in Calgary for the Labor Day game, which we haven't seen in several years. They have partnered with the Spirit of Edmonton now to make them the team is now the presenting sponsor for the Spirit of Edmonton, which had dire financial situation going on. And the team, it's been a great relationship between the team and the Spirit, but the team's never been involved financially before, and now they're doing that. So it's the 50th anniversary of the Spirit of Edmonton, and the team's getting involved in that, and it's going to help them to keep going and keep moving forward. So, by the way, if you're watching the Spirit of Edmonton, breakfast tickets are on sale now. So if you're going to Vancouver and you want to get some sluice juice and pancakes, you better get there quickly to buy them at the Spirit Breakfast on the Spirit website.
I'm glad it's staying around because that was one of my favorite stops whenever I did take in a Grey Cup. Okay, so I have to give John Ryan, the former rider and elk kicker, the Elkamos. We're calling them the Elkamos on this show, the Edmonton Elkamos. And the Edmonton Elkamos are playing really good football, and I'm glad to see, because when I had Matt Dunnigan on this show before the season started, he predicted the Edmonton football team, the Elks, would be in the Grey Cup. He did it before you guys started over. And then I've had other guys on, and we said, listen, this isn't a winless team. Like, they're a pretty good football team. And now they're playing, along with Winnipeg, the best football in the West.
Point one is you are what your record says you are, right? That's the old football phrase. I give these guys credit. Right through 0-7, they just said, we just need one win to turn it around. And that's exactly what happened. They got that win. They got it in Saskatchewan. They played really well. Now they've won 4 of the last 5. And the one they lost was to Montreal, the best team in the league, by 4 points. Earlier the year, they lost to Montreal by 3 points. They had 3 straight walk-off losses with a field goal being kicked. Just give them one of those games that they lost by 3 points or less. Just give them one of those games, and they're 2 points out of first place. And we're looking at a little different perspective. Now they're still in last place. Calgary's got a game in hand, but they got another game with Calgary coming up, of course, from the Labor Day rematch. They've got another game in Calgary later in the season in October. They got 2 games with Winnipeg. They got a game with Saskatchewan. So they kind of got their own destiny in their hands. If they win the right games at the right time, they could make the playoffs. And when you get in the playoffs, who knows what could happen after that. But they're playing really well right now. They're doing so many things really well, both offensively and defensively. Over this 5-game stretch, I figured it out the other day, and my math is sometimes wrong, but here's what I'm going to tell you. Offensively, in that 5 games, they're averaging 35 points. Defensively, they're giving up 20 points a game on average. So that doesn't include the pick six the punt return that went back in the game on Labor Day. So take that one out because it wasn't on the defense. So 35-20, that's a pretty good margin.
You know, Tevin Jones, when he was here, was one of my favorite guys off the field. I had him on the show about a week or so ago. He's moved into the slot. The knock on him was his nose wasn't in the playbook in Saskatchewan as much as maybe they wanted it to be. And I said, well, just call the plays that he knows, because the guy had almost 1,000 yards receiving. Then he went to Montreal, and he's in Edmonton. Maybe he feels like it's a last chance for him. But you put him in the mix here. I've been racking my brain. At full health, Edmonton has the best, or right there is the best receiving core in the league?
Pretty close to it. I mean, Hergy Mayala's come in, and he's been a really nice surprise for the Elks. But yeah, Tevin Jones has been great. He didn't even have a job for the first 2 weeks of the regular season, which is when you see what he's doing now is crazy. Then he came in, and he didn't start here for the first 4 or 5 weeks. He's just on special teams. What did he do? Led the team in special teams tackles. And I remember talking to him the first week he got here, and he said, all I want to do is play football. I'll do whatever they want me to do. I just want to help the team win. Then there's an injury. Arkell Smith gets hurt. A rookie receiver, he gets hurt, and Tevin Jones gets put in the lineup for the game in Saskatchewan. 123 yards and 2 touchdowns. Gets another 123 yards the next week. Has big catches, big second down catches. I think he went 15 for 15 on his first 15 targets. And then, of course, we know what he did on Labor Day with that those great numbers, 208 yards, I think it was, and the weird play. We joked it was a play they drew out, and we're gonna try it. So we'll see. You know, the fumble by Gino, and he picks the ball up and runs down to the 1 yard line. Just didn't have one more yard in you, man. One more yard. So
I heard that call. Yeah,
I believe he took some ribbing on the bus on the way home, but that's good. If you're getting ribbed on the way home from Calgary on Labor Day, that means you won the game. So that's good. Yeah, he's been a great addition.
Yeah. So is it McLeod's team again? Is it Trey's team when he's healthy? Like where do we? Is there a quarterback controversy there?
It's McLeod's team right now. How can you take the ball away from a guy who threw for 486 yards and 3 touchdowns? He's got 920 yards in his last 3 games and 7 or 8 touchdowns. He's gone 106 attempts without throwing an interception. He might be the best quarterback in the league over the last 3 weeks, right? He's the top performer on the honor roll from PFF and the CFL this week. You can't take the ball away from him right now. Will he falter or will he stay this hot? Probably not. Will there be an opportunity for Trey Ford to play at some point? I believe there will be. He may even get a start down the stretch. We'll see. But right now, this is McLeod Bethel Thompson's team, man. MBT is just going lights out right now.
Okay, so I know you got to worry about now, and you want to win now, obviously, at Edmonton. But listen, Trey Ford's a Canadian. Trey Ford is exciting. He's the Canadian version of Lamar Jackson light. He's a free agent, I think, after this year, if I'm not mistaken. So you got to also look long term. You know, do I want to stay in Edmonton when I'm Trey Ford if every time I get a chance we win, but then I know he was out because of injury, but every time I get a chance we win, but then it seems like I always have to prove myself to get back on the field.
Well, you know, he's been out because he's been hurt, right?
Right.
That happened the first year, too. He got hurt in a game against Calgary. He never played again the rest of that year. And then they brought Cornelius in as the starter to start that year, I think, or maybe it was Arbuckle. It's all kind of blended in together now. Then he got a chance to play, and he played well and finished up the season. But I think they went to McLeod Bethel Thompson. One, you got to win now. This team has to win now. And I love Trey Ford. I think he's just a fantastic athlete, and he's going to be a guy to deal with in this league for a long time. But he's got to get better still. I mean, he had 10 starts last year. 6 of those starts, I think he threw for under 200 yards. It's a passing league, right? But that's last year. This year he was much better. He stepped up into the pocket. He hung into the pocket more, and he found that 3rd and 4th guy sometimes to pass the ball to. I worry about the same thing. I mean, you want to win now, and this franchise needs to win now. There's no doubt about that. They're trending for $30K for the game, the Labor Day rematch game coming up. So it's going to be a good crowd. You got to win now. And right now, McLeod Bethel Thompson gives you the best chance to win. He's, as I said, he might be right now over the last 3 weeks the best quarterback in the Canadian Football League. Certainly putting up some great stats over those 3 games. But you got to wonder. He's 36. He takes it 1 year at a time. He might retire. He's the kind of guy who you can expect the unexpected from, right? He spent a year. He left the CFL last time to be close to his family. Went and played in the USFL. His family, his wife is a Hollywood producer, and she's working on a big series, I believe, for Disney Plus. So does he want to have the same situation next year where he's away from his family and away from his daughter and away from his wife, or does he want to go home and do something in the LA area? That's up to him to decide, and I think the Elks got to find that out from him before they move further with Trey Ford. But you're right, Ford's the future, but you got to win now, baby, and that's what they're trying to do more than anything else.
And as a guy who's called a lot of losing football, you're happy to see some wins. It's always nice to call.
It's been fun. Football. Like the last month has been fun. I mean, they won 4 games. It reminds me of that stretch last year when Ford came in. I think they won 4 or 5 in that stretch too, and then it went downhill pretty quickly for the last 4 games of the year. But yeah, I mean, starting this season and up until they were 0-7. This team had won 11 games since coming back from COVID, since 21. So 21, 22, 23, and almost halfway through 24, they'd won 11 games. So everybody's having a lot more fun right now. It's an entertaining team. Defense is good. Offense is good. It's a very good team to watch right now.
Well, as I look at the schedule here, you got the Stamps coming up here, have a nice crowd there. You got the Bombers coming in there. Then you go to Winnipeg. Then you got the Riders coming in. You go to Calgary, and then the Argonauts. Of those 6 games, you'd have to think you got to beat Calgary, twice. I think you have to beat Calgary twice because those are winnable games for sure. And I think the Riders, let's be honest. Last time the Riders have come in there the last 2 times, the Riders should have lost those games. The Elks gave them the game. Okay.
Yep.
So I think you have to have those 3 minimum. You have to get 3 minimum to make the playoffs, don't you think? Or 4 for Edmonton?
I think so. We kind of said going into the home and home with Calgary, and then followed. They got a bye week next week. Then the home and home with Winnipeg. You got to take 3 or 4 in that set. So 2-2. Maybe. I mean, depends how Winnipeg's going, right? They're starting to get their game going, although offensively they're struggling still a little bit. So maybe 2-2, and then you got to beat Saskatchewan, you're right, and you got to beat Calgary the second time you play them in October. And who knows what position Toronto will be in and what that game will mean to them in the last week of the season. So. Yeah,
there's a crossover. There's a crossover berth all of a sudden there. They can't beat Hamilton. All of a sudden, you could see a crossover berth west to east too.
Yeah, for sure. Or east to west is still alive, actually, when you think about it, right? With that win for Hamilton kind of kept both scenarios alive, although pretty unlikely that Hamilton gets it together enough to cross over to the west. But yeah, they got an opportunity. It's just too bad that they had so many things go their way. They were inventing ways to lose at the start of the season.
Is that an indictment? Is that an indictment on? Is what happened and what's happening now an indictment on Chris Jones? Like, they didn't do a lot. They haven't changed a lot, have they?
Nope, not really. They haven't. They're just playing better. They're just getting their game together. They're doing everything that Chris Jones tried to get them to do. I hear the dressing room's a little more stable right now, a little calmer right now. But I mean, Chris Jones worked hard to get this team where it is. And let's be honest, the players on the field that I'm watching practice right now, Chris Jones brought them in. He and G. Simon worked together to bring them in. So. For winning 4 out of 5, Chris Jones has to get some credit for it, for sure. He this year he's a better GM than he was a coach, I think, and that's we're seeing that right now in this team.
I think you hit it right on the nose. I think Chris Jones at this point in his life is a better evaluator of talent than he is a head coach. I think that may have always been that way.
Yeah, he loves coaching though. He loves being in the room. He loves the interaction with the players. He loves being on the sidelines. I know that for sure. So but he also loves watching film and he loves finding guys. I mean, last year, Ballsy, when he left here after the season ended, after he did garbage bag day and all that media stuff and everything, he took about a month to drive home. And he stopped at every little small school along the way. And he shook trees and he looked under rocks and he looked around corners to find guys. And I don't know who the guys are here that he brought in, but he brought them in. And he found them. And I think that shows you, he's good at that. He can find guys. And you have to change how you scout right now because of the USFL or the XFL or whatever it's called now. You have to change because players don't want to go to a different country, right? They want to stay at home if they can, and they play fewer games in the spring league in the States. So it's harder to find guys, it's harder to sign guys, and it's harder to get guys here. But Chris Jones took a different route. He and G. Simon. G. gets a lot of credit for what's been accomplished as well too. They took a different route than I think a lot of teams did, and they went and they found guys and brought them in. Like, I mean, Nick Anderson. I don't know if he was one of the guys that they brought in from that scouting trip or not, but I mean, he's been a find. I read an article from Winnipeg. Tony Jones was talking about how at the end of the year last year he was told he's the guy at Will linebacker next year and prepare for it. Then he said, I met in Florida with him in the off season, and they said I'm the guy. Then I get to training camp, started training camp, I'm the guy. And then Nick Anderson suits up, and he's the guy now because he stole the job. He was that good, right? And he's in the top 5 in tackles in the CFL, and he's just been a great find, and one of several that have been brought in from even bringing in Tevin Jones, making that move, bringing in Justin Rankin as a running back twice. They cut him and then brought him back. So there's been a lot of good finds, and right now they're a pretty good football team.
Yeah, and I can speak to what you're saying because on that way home, he stopped at Grand Forks, North Dakota. My kid talked to him. So he said, yeah, Chris Jones came to practice. So you're absolutely right about that. So he did take his time. And FCS is where the players, a lot of our players come from. Lastly, I'll let you go, but I'm going to let you go on this. We started with Oilers. We're into Elks, the Elkimos. The Edmonton Eskimos and the Oilers were neck and neck in that town. It was a city of champions. It's become an Oilers town. I don't know that it'll ever be 40,000 fans going to games in Edmonton for football. It's not that way anywhere in the league right now. But realistically, is this still a good football town? And what do you think a realistic expectation is for people coming to that stadium?
I think it is a good football town. I think it's a fan base that has been punched in the stomach an awful lot over the last 4 or 5 years. And I think it's the perfect storm that caused problems. First, it was COVID. It was the name change. It was missing a year for COVID. It was the rules for COVID. They went like every other team in pro sports in North America. They went to digital tickets, and they got backlash on that. The city of Edmonton has a bag policy for the stadium, like most stadiums do, and they got a backlash for that. And everybody blames the Elks for everything, right? Concessions are run by the city, so if the hot dog's cold, they get mad at the Elks, even though the Elks have nothing to do with it, right? So you throw all that together, then you got a bad team that loses 20, whatever it was, straight games at home. It's the perfect storm for disaster, and that's exactly what happened to the Elks. And then you had, I think, a management crew that ignored the fans and ignored the fan base, and there was a definite break between the organization and the fans, which they have worked very hard at the last couple of years to get back, and it just all added up to just nobody wanted to come here, and now they're winning, and winning cures everything, right? How many times have you heard that in pro sports? They're going to get probably 30,000, maybe more out for the game, the Labor Day rematch game. I think you can't get 40,000 in this stadium if you're winning and you're an entertaining product and the atmosphere at the stadium is good. It's Family Day coming up on Saturday, and they've got a big family section. They're setting up inside the field house. They got a great tailgate that goes on here just outside Commonwealth Stadium. They're improving the atmosphere in the building. So I think they can get back to, I don't think you'll ever get to 40,000 regularly. Yeah. But I think you can get to that, like Sask and Winnipeg are that 25 to 30 regularly, right? And I think that's now the CFL standard, 25 to 30. And then on those special days, like opening day, like your rivalry days, like Labor Day, like playoff games, that's when you should be able to get to 40 if you're doing everything else right. Because you got to win first off, but then you got to treat your customers properly. And the Elks are trying to do both those things now.
Great voice of the Edmonton Elks. That's Morley Scott. He's joined by Dave Campbell on 630/880 Ched. 6:30 till October 9th, and then it's 880.
That is correct. We're moving. So move with us. We'll buy you pizza and beer.
And you're moving up the standings, too. So enjoy calling some winning football. Take care, bro.
Thanks, Ballsy. Congrats.
Yeah, that is Morley Scott. 630/880 Ched. Did that interview yesterday. This show is a mixture of live and tape, take you behind the scenes. Sometimes you can't get the guys exactly live. So we used to do it in radio, live to tape, but it's hard to fake it here. But I don't think that really matters to you as long as the information is updated. And to update that game, Boris Beatty is going to play at kicker. McLeod Bethel-Thompson gets to start at quarterback. As you heard Morley say, they're not taking the ball away from him. But a big change in Calgary. Jake Mayer has been benched after that 1 touchdown, 4 interception performance against the Elks last week, and he will be replaced. Well, not last week, Monday, I guess. And he will be replaced by Logan Bonner, former Utah State grad. So he gets his first professional start. We'll see how long his leash is. And a crowd of 30,000 expected to be there. Okay, just before I get to our last segment here with Andy McNamarra, we'll hook him up live here on the platform here. A reminder, you can go to YouTube. You can subscribe and get notifications when we're coming up. I went a little earlier today because I am headed out to watch the game with family, U of C Dinos and the U of A Golden Bears. My son's playing for the Dinos in his second game. The team he lost to in week 1, the Rams, at home against the U of S Huskies. So if you're around the Regina area and you want to go on a beautiful Friday night to watch some great U Sports football, go check out the Rams and the Huskies. And you can also go to that stadium tomorrow night after the Riders and the Blue Bombers game and watch another provincial showdown, a battle of unbeatens. Tom Sargent and the juggernaut Hilltops taking on a very formidable foe in the 3-0 Regina Thunder under the direction of Scott McCauley. His defense, led by Paul Dawson as the D coordinator, the best defense in the PFC right now, but they got their work cut out for them with the likes of Corbin Eben at running back, Trey Reeder at quarterback, Drake Douglas at receiver. It's going to be a great game at Mosaic Stadium tomorrow at 7. And of course, the Riders kick off at 1 Saskatchewan time. I will be joined on the Our Balls Are Bigger post-game show. Yes, we're back this week. Computers working, all systems go. I'll be joined by Isaac Harker, the former Rough Rider quarterback. He's done a great job. He's actually making a TV show in Atlanta. So I don't know what that's all about, but he's going to join me, and we'll talk about that and break down the Riders game versus the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Riders 1-5-1 in their last 7, 0-5-1 in their last 6. Bombers have won 5 straight games and are first place in the CFL's West along with the BC Lions, a spot the Riders held for a long time. So join us tomorrow for that. And I leave you with this interview here. If we can hook up with him, we're going to wrap the show up talking with our buddy Andy McNamarra. We had NFL football and a couple of signings today too, by the way. One big one yesterday was Patrick Surtain, who was signed by the Broncos, became the highest paid corner in NFL football. Nope. Jalen Ramsey, the former Jag and the former Ram, now with the Dolphins. He has become the highest paid corner in football. And Pat Freiermuth, the tight end, has signed on an extension through 2028 with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it looks like, staying with the Steelers news, Russell Wilson has a calf injury and is questionable for their game against the Falcons. Could be a Justin Fields show. Anyway, NFL talk. We'll see if Andy's there right now. Andy, you there? Okay, so people have a disjointed attention span, and I'm one of those guys, so I like to do this first. I got Andy McNamarra here. He is our fantasy football expert. I like to do this at the start and the end. Where can they find your stuff?
Well, you can get me, The Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara, on YouTube. Just search it, click notifications, subscribe. On Twitter, X, at SickPodBrowns, at AndyMC81. And we got the link up on Andy MC Sports as well. And that gives you fantasy football coverage live Sundays, 10 a.m. Eastern. Set your lineup, perfect fantasy lineup. Tuesdays, we do waiver wire and all that good stuff.
So, okay, listen, take the Browns and the fact you're disgruntled because they left for Baltimore, okay?
Yes.
I have no dog in this fight. I bow to Lamar Jackson's otherworldly talent. I think you even have to admit the guy is a video game, okay?
Yes.
Now, he's on the trajectory to be Cam Newton because once his legs stop, he's pretty well done. That's what's going to happen to the guy eventually, but we're nowhere near that, at least right now, okay? Yep. So he can make spectacular plays like the touchdown pass to Likely that counted and like the one that didn't count, all right? Yep. But if you want to be a professional championship quarterback, you have to make layup throws in the biggest games. And this guy has never proven to me that he can do it, and I don't see it happening. The Ravens will go nowhere with Lamar Jackson as their quarterback.
From your lips to God's ears, brother. Yes, that's what people don't talk about. And I don't know why. Because he puts up Madden video games, fantasy football stats, wins individual MVP. That's fine. It depends what you want out of a quarterback. I would love out of a quarterback one that wins a damn championship, one that can win more than one playoff game, one where you can put the team on your back. You know who does that? Patrick Mahomes. And I hear, the guy's toe was out of back. That's loser talk. Losers come up with excuses and complain. You know who wins? Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. They find a way. Doesn't matter. The greats win. They find a way to do it. Joe Burrow and the Bengals. Okay? He's been to a Super Bowl when healthy. They find a way. The fact of the matter is this, it remains the same since he was drafted in 2018, and it remains the same today. To beat Lamar Jackson, you have to make him throw the football. If you can contain him to a degree, you can beat him. Ballsy, we saw last night, again, just like in the playoff game. He looked confused. The defensive reads, he panics. I don't want someone who panics. And yes, he can make the odd great throw, and he's hella talented, athleticism, no doubt. Mm-hmm. But the guy has as many playoff wins as Baker Mayfield, drafted in the same draft class. And I'll tell you this, after 7 years, if you are still being talked about that you have to develop as a passer, ain't gonna happen. I don't want to hear about, he needs wide receivers. He had wide receivers. He has wide receivers right now.
And
it's not their fault.
And 2 stud tight ends, too.
Yes, it's not their fault. At some point, when it comes down to it, regular season, and he'll put up some great... When it comes down to it, Lamar Jackson can't win the big one, can't get it done, and I'm sick of people putting him up on this pedestal as some all-time great. He's a fascinating watch, great in video games, fantasy football, sure. Real life-wise, not going to happen.
Well, the great is the guy, whether I like him or not, because they're on the Chiefs and I don't like the Chiefs. The great is Patrick Mahomes. Last year, like we talked about in a previous episode, he's not winning the Super Bowl. All his receivers are gone. Tyreek Hill's gone. All he does is win the Super Bowl. He's not winning this year. That
has to go on the road.
That touchdown pass to Worthy when he was wide open, that was all schematics. Like Andy Reid had guys going over here and over there, and all of a sudden nobody knows where anybody's going. Like those two guys are unstoppable.
I'll tell you this, Xavier Worthy, and we all love the overreaction week 1. I know, right? Yeah. Xavier Worthy also weighs 160 pounds, and I want to see the first time he gets hit by a linebacker over the middle if he gets back up. However, with that being said, oh my, did he not prove he is more than a one-trick pony 40-yard dash setter, record setter at the Combine? They've been looking for their Tyreek Hill replacement. They tried it with Kadarius Toney. He sucked. They tried it with multiple others. Sky Moore, no good. Mm-hmm. Xavier Worthy can be that gadget guy. He ran one in, and he caught one. If you can keep this guy on the field and durable, boy, he looks like something special.
So I'm going to have a tough time tonight. I'll be watching mostly my son's game with the Dinos and the Alberta Golden Bears. But tonight is a Friday night game in Brazil. Before we get to the game, something very interesting. I don't know if this was by plan or because they're designated the home team. But the Eagles are like 2 blocks from the stadium, and the Packers have to drive. They're basically in Venezuela. They have to drive 2 hours to the stadium in Brazil. That's the difference.
Why?
I have no idea. So I don't know if that's the difference or not. Like, I don't know if that was by choice or that's the only safe hotel because it's not exactly a safe area.
They've been told to stay inside.
Because they wear green, and green is a bad color to wear outside in Brazil, apparently, because of gangs and everything like that. Both teams wear green. Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. So that could be interesting. It's going to be whatever team gets their legs under them and gets used to what's going on. And you know this, Andy. Even yesterday's game, even though it had an exciting ending and there were some great plays, the first 2 weeks of the NFL is a dog's breakfast. It's like preseason, okay? Like flags and legal procedure and all this type of stuff, okay? Or false start for the NFL lingo. Yeah. So, but this game is interesting. You got an Eagles team that started 10-0 or 9-0, 10-1, and just petered out. Offensive coordinator fired, defensive coordinator fired. Sirianni's on the hot seat now, and then you got Matt LaFleur. He doesn't have to put up with the bullshit of Aaron Rodgers now. That was maybe his best coaching job last year with a young team and Jordan Love. Before you get into some guys, who do you like in this game tonight?
Boy, first of all, you're totally right. I could argue you go through week 3 and into week 4 because they don't play in preseason, so you're working out the kinks, right? That's what happens. So it's probably going to be sloppy, and it's in a weird location, and that takes away the home field advantage. Typically, that would be for the Eagles. Mm-hmm. So it is it's a 2.5. It's a pick'em. Eagles are 2.5 point favorites, so it's pretty much a pick'em right now. I like the Eagles to rebound in this game. I also really like the Packers, how they're built, and that team is winning the NFC North, in my opinion, this year. I think it's a team where you got a bunch of young wide receivers. You have Jordan Love, who I have stock in on several of my fantasy football teams, by the way. I think he's going to progress, and he showed. Jordan Love impressed me last year. Started hot, got figured out. You're like, out there, and then he came back. That's what you want to see. So with this game, I think the Eagles, with the revamped offensive defensive coordinator, like you said, I think they have the edge. It should be close because both teams are really good, but I'll give the edge to the Eagles.
Okay, so in this game, though, is there kind of a sleeper somebody got your eye on? Because I know you had talked about Goddard from the Eagles on an earlier episode, and then they've got some dynamic young receivers in Green Bay, and then Jacobs is there in the backfield.
Sure, yeah, Josh Jacobs, really nice ad for fantasy football purposes this year. I like Jaden Reed for the Packers. And it could be, and this is another part of what you have to realize when it comes to fantasy football, is we have to see what receivers are being targeted this year. Is there a pattern forming? What do we see? Because you have 2-3 options, like you said, that could be a go-to in Green Bay, or maybe none of them, and maybe it goes back and forth. But I really like Jaden Reed. I like the Josh Jacobs combo with Jordan Love. So Jaden Reed I would put in there. Jacobs for sure in fantasy. Dallas Goedert, that was somebody you could have gotten really late in your fantasy draft if you wanted to wait on the tight end position. And from my guys in Philly, they're telling me that don't discount Dallas Goedert. Now, I don't know if it's going to be week 1, but Dallas Goedert's going to have a bounce back year. So if he's sitting on your waiver wire, or if you're a little on the fence to play him, I'd play him with confidence.
Any waiver wire guys, sleepers or waiver wire guys you're interested in this week going into week number 1?
Oh yeah, there's 2 guys Ballsy I absolutely love, and I'll start with it. And it's 2 guys. Actually, well, yeah, I got 3, but I'll give you two first as far as the waiver wire. And it goes to their counterpart stud wide receivers, and whether it's holdouts or contracts or kind of holdouts or whatever, Jamar Chase and CD Lamb. And the 2 receivers you can get off the waiver wire today that are owned in under 10% of most fantasy leagues, some in less than 5, is Jalen Tolbert for the Cowboys. There's no Michael Gallup anymore. Tolbert's going to go on the outside. 3rd round pick in 2022. Guy's got a lot of potential, and he's not being talked about enough because of all the drama in Dallas. But Jalen Tolbert, we have to think about it. In Dallas, CeeDee Lamb, Ferguson at tight end, and Tolbert. Zeke Elliott's glue factory. It's a committee. It's a schmaz back there, right? So get yourself some Jalen Tolbert. I'm not saying playing him this week against the Browns. That's a really tough defense. Park him on the bench just in case. And the other one, Andre Yasevich. There's different pronunciations of his name. IOS is how you search for him in your fantasy league. Search his YOS is Yasevich, however you want to say it.
Yeah.
And if we talked about him, not this past draft balls, but last year at the Combine. That was one of my Combine darlings. Yasevich is somebody who now with no Tyler Boyd automatically moves into that 3 spot. And think about it for the future. T. Higgins is going to be out of there. They're not bringing back Higgins. Jamar Chase is disgruntled. One of them gets hurt. Yasevich could be a contributor right now as a flex with the potential to move up, and you can get him for free. You didn't even have to draft the guy. That's somebody I'm trying to pick up on all my fantasy teams. Put him on the bench and wait and see.
Okay, and what about you mentioned there was a 3rd guy there? Is there somebody else?
Adonai Mitchell, and he's probably in the 60%. Take a look at your waiver wire, but I don't think he's being talked about enough. This rookie, he was, as Yasevich was last year, this guy was my Combine crush this year, man. He is so smooth, 6'2", strides, can catch, and Michael Pittman isn't good at the deep ball. Anthony Richardson's got a gun of an arm, so you can have Pittman for a whole bunch of stuff. Mitchell's can be the deep guy, and if anything happens to Pittman, you can work him in. So this is a really good opportunity to have a rookie really step in as the number 2 right away. You're talking about Yasevich as a 3. Mitchell's the 2. Now, it depends. Can Richardson stay healthy? That remains to be seen, but the opportunity should be there. So if Adonai Mitchell's sitting around there too, go grab him.
Okay, so here's a question. I want to put you on the spot. Is there somebody that you'd say, okay, I'm going to start this guy, but maybe you shouldn't start him, like in a start him, sit him type of thing? Like, is there a guy that you're like, I want to start him, but you're like, I don't think you should start this guy?
Well, it kind of comes down to running backs to me. And you might, and here's the thing. When I say you might not or shouldn't start this guy, it depends. You might not have a choice. Right? Okay. Sometimes it's like, okay, well, I don't like it, but I might not have a choice. And it comes down to your charges, my friend. And it's Gus Edwards.
Because a committee?
It's a committee. But people, I could see Gus Edwards sort of doing what Derrick Henry did last night with the Ravens. Goal line. But as far as even he's on the depth chart, I saw this guy being drafted in some drafts as like a feature back, like someone taking him as like a top 2 running back. No. Yeah. Have him maybe as a flex, maybe on the bench, but it's somebody who's being started a lot, and I got to see how this Chargers offense clicks with the lack of weapons. On the other side, I love your Lad McConkey. I got him in like 3 of my teams. Lad McConkey is, I think, going to be real good. But Gus Edwards is somebody who's going to be started a lot, and if you have another choice, I might back off a bit.
Is there a game that you're really looking forward to watching besides the Cleveland Browns and the Cowboys, because that's going to be Tom Brady's debut? By the way, how do you think Tom's going to do in the booth? Well,
what's interesting, I don't know if you heard this, that because I don't know if he's part owner of the Raiders right now or in talks or whatever, but but they're not letting him talk to other coaches for his broadcast prep.
Oh, wow.
How crazy is that? So you've done play-by-play like I have, and color guys especially, like we call the plays, but they got to be talking to the coaches, the players. They're limiting Tom from doing that because of that. So it's pure hate on Brady. But look, we know no one comes more. He's going to be prepared. The question is, though, can he get his points out quick? Does he step on toes? How does that work? I think he's going to be good, and I hope he provides some unique insight and goes down the Tony Romo path and not the Drew Brees path where it didn't go too well.
Yeah. So besides that game, is there one you're looking forward to watching in this? Like the Colts Texans could be interesting. I find that could be an interesting game.
I like that one.
Yeah, that's not a bad. Go ahead.
I like that one a lot. You know what? How about Monday night, 49ers Jets? Can Aaron Rodgers play more than a couple plays? 49ers too. A lot of storylines. The Aaron Rodgers one is going to take the top angle, but Brandon Ayuk back.
Mm-hmm.
And if we talk fantasy wise, I put Brandon Ayuk on. Here's another one. I'd say Gus Edwards. Brandon Ayuk I put on my do not draft board. I'm not interested in that guy. Not because the talent isn't there, but we see all the time guys hold out, whatever, and all of a sudden, oh, there's a calf, there's a hammy. The guy's getting his money now. This guy seems like he's about the cash. I'd prefer Deebo Samuel over Brandon Ayuk. So I want to see how this offense gels and what the 49ers are looking like, because that's going to be interesting with the Ayuk part and Aaron Rodgers. So give me the Monday Nighter as the other game.
Okay, one I'm looking forward to seeing kind of is the Jags and the Dolphins. I'm interested to see what I don't know if you'd call him a sleeper because I'm not an expert like you, but Brian Thomas, the receiver for the Jags, like Lawrence needs somebody now that he can rely on. So I'm interested to see how Brian Thomas or whoever steps in and fills some of the void.
Yeah, you know what? He hasn't gotten a lot of fantasy love hype. He's being drafted. I got him on one of my teams. But I'm with you there. Because if we look at the options for Trevor Lawrence, who hopefully takes another step forward under Peterson this year, you got Christian Kirk, who I love. I try to get Christian Kirk, have him as a flex. This guy's solid fantasy player. But then you got Gabe Davis. Well, we saw him in Buffalo. Up and home run guy, up and down. And Brian Thomas is going to be stepping in. It's a great opportunity for him, and he got drafted high. I'm with you. I think Brian Thomas Jr. Could be really good. And we look at what do we look for in traits? How does he separate himself? 6'4", 205. That's jump ball city for me, baby. End of the end zone, corner, pop it up. I'm with you. I want to see how this develops, how it grows over the first couple of weeks. But Brian Thomas Jr. is somebody. Everyone's talking about Marvin Harrison Jr., which they should. Malik Neighbors. Brian Thomas Jr. maybe not getting enough love because he's in Jacksonville.
The other intriguing one for me, all the great players, St. Brown there in Detroit, but how about Jameson Williams as that number 2 receiver? He's got to really step up this year. I don't know if it happens this week, but he's really got to step up this year, take a little pressure off of the tight end there and the number 1 receiver.
Jameson Williams is a fascinating situation to follow because remember they drafted him and he was injured, right? So you wipe that out. And so what can he do? What is he able to do? We know the talent was there. Does he develop that chemistry with Jared Goff? And we look, Khalif Raymond's just a guy, so that's not there. Sam Laporte is an absolute stud. He should be the first tight end off the board. He's going to be tight end 1 in fantasy this year, I predict. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown. So where does Jameson Williams fit in? I think there is a real opportunity for him. It just depends. Okay, can he grow into it? So that's somebody who, if you drafted him or you have him, I personally would take a wait-and-see approach before putting him in my lineup. Doesn't mean I don't want him. Doesn't mean I don't think he could do well, but I want to see how that grows, how that develops there. But that's definitely somebody to keep an eye on.
And I'm just talking football here, maybe not from a fantasy perspective.
Sure.
The Bears have never had a 4,000-yard passing quarterback. Caleb Williams looked pretty decent in the preseason, but it is the preseason, as Bill Belichick reminded people on on InstaFace, as he's on there now. He calls it InstaFace. Anyway, so but it's not a sexy matchup, but Caleb Williams versus Will Levis. Will Levis really has to do something this year if he wants to stay as a starter in the league.
Yeah. Will Levis, I don't know if the coaching is going to be as good for him as it was for Josh Allen, but I put him in the same category in the raw category as Josh Allen was. And remember, Josh Allen could have if he got drafted that same year with Baker, Lamar, Sam Darnold, whoever else, there's a couple others. If he went to New York, I think Josh Allen would be out of the league.
You're right.
He went to Buffalo. They grew him slowly, and now he's a superstar. Will Levis, I think, is the same. All the talent, raw arm talent. Can he get it down? Well, they added weapons. They gave him weapons, right? You still got DeAndre Hopkins. You added Calvin Ridley. So you got some pieces there. What can you do? And I think it's a spot where you look at the Titans and don't count out Tony Pollard on the running back side. They got the Browns' old offensive line coach, Bill Callahan, to accompany his son, Brian. He is a guru. He is a mastermind. He is a master of the run game preparation. Tony Pollard, I think, is going to be a real asset on fantasy football and real life wise. But yeah, Will Levis, this is a big year because if they do poorly, hey, Titans are going to be looking to draft somebody else.
And if I'm a young quarterback playing my first ever game, and this is why I put him in my starting lineup, Keenan Allen, the Slayer, is going to go off. He is going to have a big game. I say 10 catches over 100 yards.
That is so – it's so interesting with the Bears because if it was just Keenan Allen as the main veteran, I'd totally be on board with you. But you got DJ Moore there too.
I know.
Where does he work in? I think I want to see, and this is why with rookie quarterbacks it's always a little dangerous to hang your hat on the fantasy side with these receivers because you don't know if they're going to develop chemistry with somebody you don't expect. I might have told you this before, but for example, Baker Mayfield came in 2018. Guess who it wasn't with Jarvis Landry, it was with Rashard Hollywood Higgins.
Oh, wow.
Right. Or is it Roma Odunze? Is it the rookie? Where do they develop that chemistry? But you're right. They also look at, all right, well, who's the reliable go-to? And that very well could be Keenan Allen. I certainly want him on my team to see where it plays out.
Okay, man, we're done here, but where can they find you? And how late can they find you up until kickoff for their late changes and everything like that?
You know what? If you want any changes or advice, you got to use hashtag AskAndy on Twitter, X. Yeah, that's where, if you want like instant, like, hey, Andy, it's 10 minutes to kickoff, hit me up there. That's the most likely where you'll get me. At AndyMC81, at SickPodBrowns. Instagram, too. We got the show link up at AndyMC Sports. And YouTube, The Sick Podcast with Andy McNamarra, 10 a.m. Eastern, live on Sunday. Fantasy football starts its injury updates and answer your questions using hashtag AskAndy.
Okay, so do that one more time because I'm my own guy here. I'm doing the producing, I'm doing the bookwork, I'm doing everything, okay? So I totally forgot to do that this week. We will do it in subsequent weeks. So if they want a question for this show, where do they hook up you again?
Yep, so you use hashtag AskAndy on Twitter, X, at SickPodBrowns, at AndyMC81. Just use the hashtag, that's how I search and find it. Or on the show itself live on YouTube, The Sick Podcast with Andy McNamarra. You jump in the comment section there, do social, whatever there, click the notifications on, and we answer it in real time, man, and we'll get you ready for kickoff.
By the way, I think I asked you this before, but I got to ask one more time because my brain's mush. Why are you a Browns fan?
Third generation, my friend.
Yeah,
my grandfather,
that's what it is. Yeah.
back in the 40s in Toronto, you could only catch on the radio the Browns or the Giants, and he had Otto Graham and Paul Brown winning championships. Then my dad was a kid, 60s, while on TV, before the Bills came around, it was just the Browns or the Giants. You had Jim Brown. That's pretty good. Mm-hmm. That got passed on to me, and hasn't been as fruitful for my fandom.
So they had all those big names. who do you like? Who's your guy? Give me your Mount Rushmore of Cleveland Brown players of me players.
Yeah, of my players, number one, Eric Metcalf.
Yeah,
I got his card behind here, and it was a dream come true. I got to, when I was working with the U of S Sports on the crypto fantasy football, running the whole ship there before the market went under. Look, the people live large. They didn't run it well, but we live large. I'll say that.
Yeah.
So Eric Metcalf came out to, I got a hold of him and we talked and booked him, and they picked me up in a limo with Eric Metcalf to go do a live show in a Las Vegas studio for the big draft that we did a couple years ago. And I got to have a bourbon with Eric Metcalf in a limo and do 2 shows with him, a Pro Football Hall of Fame a year later as well. And that's my guy. Eric Metcalf is my guy. Bernie, I got Bernie Kosar's autograph on the helmet up here. He's probably the next one. And for more recent vintage, I love my Baker. I love Baker Mayfield, man.
Yeah, but a mountain has 4, so give me a 4th one. Is it that hard? Is it that hard?
It's, you know what? It kind of is, but I'll say Joe Thomas, only Hall of Famer out of this.
Yeah, you got to go with Joe. Yeah,
you know what? I'll say Joe. If we can put a little helmet on top of that, give me Nick Chubb too. What a class! What a class act.
When's he going to be back?
They're saying, and I saw him drafting in fantasy, and it's not a bad idea. You put him on the bench, but don't expect him back until the end of October.
That's terrible.
At least after the Browns bye week.
And speaking of terrible, I feel bad. Bernie's not looking so good. I
know. He's got kidneys, he's got early Parkinson's, I think. So hopefully he gets the help he needs. Big CFL connection too with Mark Trestman. When I met him at Brown's 2019 training camp, we were talking, and he was gushing about Mark Trestman, his time when Trestman was his quarterback coach in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And so he loves the he has an appreciation for the CFL as well.
Yeah.
And Bernie just super legit nice guy.
He is a nice guy. Let's be honest. He treated his body like an amusement park, and that's
how many how many of those poor quarterbacks got like he would talk about he would get hit if you feel your teeth move.
I know.
When they could club you.
I know.
Jim Kelly, all those guys, like just brutal. Imagine what the talent, Elway, Marino, all those guys could do with how tight the rules are now against quarterback.
Well, that's why these stats today, you're a stats guy. That's why these stats today are they're bogus because guys can't grab and everything like that. It's pretty well. Hey, listen, it's not easy, but it's way easier than it was. Easier. Like Dan Marino he's my favorite. Him and Fouts are my favorite of all time because they just go drop back and sling it, man. They weren't scared to throw the next interception.
No, they were absolute gunslingers. And that's why, you look back at some of the stats, you're like, oh. Like, even look at if you just look at Joe Namath's stats, they suck.
Yeah.
They're really bad. But, like, for the time, it comes back to sort of the full circle. Okay, stats are nice, but do you win? And those guys won, and that was the difference.
Well, if Patrick Mahomes wins this year, he is for sure on pace to pass Brady as the GOAT.
Oh, yeah. Well, remember, too, Brady had, the 3 and then a 10-year gap from 2005 to 2015 between Super Bowls. So if Mahomes wins this, then he can, he's going to be right there.
Like in modern day, nobody's won 3 in a row.
No one's, they've said, no one's ever won a modern or 3 Super Bowls in a row.
In the free agency, that'd be crazy, man. Absolutely crazy. I hope it doesn't happen, but I kind of hope it happens because it's great to witness history, right?
It depends if one of our teams are facing them. Then that was it. If we're in the conference championships and it's Chargers Chiefs or Browns Chiefs, then I'm not cheering for Patrick Mahomes. But otherwise, the story.
You'll like this. You'll like this. I put $50 on the Browns to be in the Super Bowl to win the AFC. 50 at plus 2,000, man.
That's a heck of a payday. Look, if Deshaun Watson gets back to 80% of what he was in Houston, that is not crazy at all. The rest of that team is at a championship caliber now.
Mm-hmm,
the question is the quarterback. If he can stay healthy and get back 80%, I don't even need full Deshaun. Give me 80%. That's a real possibility.
I'd take Deshaun Watson, all his bullshit off the field. I would take him every day of the week and twice on Sunday over Lamar Jackson. Let's end this where we started it. 100%.
Yeah, me too. He can make all the throws. That's the difference. He can make all the throws. Now, can he stay on the field?
Yeah, and can he stay away from the massage room?
Well, anyway. I hope so.
Anyway,
I hope so.
Thanks for your time, man. I'm happy I could tug you away from other things to talk to me. Take care, bro.
Go Browns.